This is Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby, and you're listening to the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. This beautiful and contemplative piano piece we're listening to together is by Circus Marcus. It is Búsqueda Exploratora number 10. I totally butchered that and would like to apologize for my horrifying Spanish pronunciation. Circus Marcus is a duo out of Spain that does some pretty interesting classical and kind of deconstructionist sort of piano avant-garde stuff. So interesting music for interesting times, my friends. And so because we have much to discuss today, let's get right down to it. If this is your first time listening to the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast, welcome. I'm your host, Dr. Lisa Marie Bobby. I'm the founder and clinical director of Growing Self-Counseling and Coaching, based out of Denver, Colorado. My background, I am trained as a marriage and family therapist. I'm licensed as a marriage and family therapist. I'm also trained as a psychologist, and I am a board-certified life coach. And so that's my kind of background and why I do this podcast is all about helping you be a happier person and feel good about yourself and have great relationships and be the kind of person that can do amazing things in the world. Your love, happiness, and success is what this show is all about. And if this is your first time listening, thank you for being here. I'm so glad that you found this. And and so today, let's talk about today. I actually have a confession to make. So I try really hard to do this podcast regularly. About every other week is what I shoot for. And I have the nicest podcast set up for you guys that I'm so excited about. And I was going to air it last Monday the 2nd, right on schedule. And I'm going to air this podcast next time because I'm still excited about it. And I think you're going to get so much out of it. It's all about your relationships and how to tell how healthy your relationship is. I have a little quiz for you. We're going to do all kinds of fun stuff. But like everybody else in the world, in the US especially, I woke up last Monday morning to horror, just absolute horror. It was the morning after the Las Vegas shooting. And like so many of you, I was just stunned and shocked and horrified and heartbroken and could not even focus on anything. And it was such a sad, sad day. And then, of course, kind of doing my job as a counselor and coach throughout the week, talking to people, of course, learning that I am not alone in this feeling. And we had lots of people coming into our practice talking about their feelings about this situation. And so instead of doing our regularly scheduled programming, I decided to really put together a different podcast for you in case you are kind of going through the same. And I kind of hate having to do this, but we have all been through, I think, so much together over the last year or two, but especially the last few months, it seems like there's just been one thing after another in terms of scary things happening in the world or just terrible natural disasters that impact so many people. And of course, these horrific mass killings that just keep happening. And, I hate to even think of this at all, but the way we're going, sooner or later, there's going to be another one. And so what I felt like would be the most helpful thing for you is instead to just pause and talk about how we handle this and how to cope with the fear and the sadness and the grief in such a scary world where bad things are happening, And I wanted to offer this to you guys because there's, I think what I'm seeing and what we have a lot of, we have news reports, right? We have people telling us what is happening, but then they're sort of like, okay, good luck with that. Roger, back to you. And we all sort of just take this stuff in the face, and then we're left on our own to figure out what to do with it. So that is what I'm going to be talking about today on this episode of the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. And I hope that it helps you just navigate the big emotions that you're probably having. And so that's what we're doing today. And just briefly before we jump in, this podcast, like all my other podcasts, it really, first of all, comes from the heart. And I hope you know that if you listen to this more than once. But also it comes from, me doing my best to bring to you what I think will be most helpful to you at any given moment. Some of it is kind of timely based on current events, but also, based a lot on what I'm hearing from clients in my practice, or, and I manage a team. We have all kinds of counselors and coaches on our team now. And so I do supervision, and I'm often talking to other therapists about their cases and kind of helping them think through different things. And so this is me with my ear to the ground, just knowing what people are talking about, trying to bring that to you. And also another thing that I look to are your questions. We have people get in touch with us all the time with their questions, and you can do this too if there are things that you have on your mind that you would like to have addressed on an upcoming episode of the Love, Happiness, and Success podcast. You can email us through our website. Our website is growingself.com. Email address is hello@growingself.com. You can also get in touch with me on Facebook, facebook.com/Dr. Lisa Bobby. I dropped the Marie in there just to make less letters to type. I guess I assume that everybody else in the world is just as lazy as I am when it comes to that sort of thing. So Dr. Lisa Bobby. And actually on that note, I think it was the last podcast before, announced our brand new breakup recovery online group that is happening on Facebook. We've had a bunch of people sign up for it so far, and I think it's really been good. This is a totally free group. It is just a Facebook group. It is a peer support group. I hop in there every once in a while to comment and like things, but it's not a therapy group. It's not a group. It's not a paid group. It's just if you are going through a breakup or divorce and feeling maybe isolated from other people who maybe mean well but can't really understand what you're going through right now, come to our breakup support group and talk about it with your new best friends. This is a secret group because I wanted to protect everybody's privacy. So you can't find the group online. If you Google it, you won't find it. The only way to get to it, which is kind of a hack, but I wanted to protect the privacy of all our group members, is by getting in touch with me directly through Facebook and asking me to add you to the group. And so both myself and my wonderful admin monitor that, and we will add you to that group. So there's that one thing, and also I think that this show, even though we're talking about kind of bigger things going on in the world and how to deal with kind of mass horror and challenging things, everything that I'm about to tell you also applies to your own personal tragedies and difficulties. Thinking back to what people experience when they are going through a terrible breakup or divorce. You've had a tragedy in your life. It does feel like a bomb just exploded in the middle of your life, and maybe if it's not a literal death, it's still very much a death. And the life that you had doesn't exist anymore. And so when it comes to coping and figuring out just how to be in the aftermath of such a thing. I hope that the ideas that I share with you today in this show help also. So, first of all, let's talk about the experience of trauma. And when I say trauma, I mean the experience of being confronted with something absolutely horrific, either something that you live through or something that you are exposed to, and seeing other people just like you going through this. It is traumatizing. It is scary. And one of the, I think, hardest things that it does, there's people that are living through the loss of a loved one and the grief and just the awfulness that they have to go through, is that there are millions of people watching them do that, watching them go through that, through the news, through the, a constant stream of stuff that we all have on our phones, the articles, the posts, and feeling with you, that it really does feel like something that we're all going through together in some ways, and just this most recent horribleness, some person who for no fathomable reason just decided that it was a good idea to start shooting up a crowd of innocent people minding their own business. And it damages our basic sense of safety and security in the world. How many music festivals have you been to in this last year where conceivably something similar may have happened? It could have been anybody. And so when you go there and begin thinking about just the realities of the world that we're living in terms of mass shootings or the threats of war or the hardships that you hear about other people going through, the natural disasters and just the human suffering, I think we can distance ourselves from it to a certain degree. And then one of these sooner or later hits close enough to home where you're like, oh yeah. And it's really scary. And so, I think in the first days, hours after hearing about something, one of a new round of tragedy, I think the really normal and expected response, and certainly what was going on for me last Monday, what I was doing instead of posting a podcast for you, was feeling terrible. I don't know about you, but I remember having this feeling after all of just the big, 9/11, Sandy Hook, Pulse nightclub, so many others, and just that all the air gets sucked out of you. And it's so hard to focus. And what I want you to know, what I was reminding myself on Monday, and also what we've been talking about with our clients, is that first of all, it's okay to not be okay when stuff like this is going on in our world. Any compassionate, caring human being who cares about what other people are going through cannot help but being affected by this sort of thing. And so I think coping strategy number one that I would like to impart on you is that it is okay to not be okay and to really allow yourself to feel and give yourself a pass. Yes, you still have responsibilities. I still showed up to work on Monday. Wasn't totally there, but I did what I needed to do. You don't drop the ball entirely and go lay in bed and not feed your kids and, get fired from your job. But be gentle with yourself, just lower your expectations for yourself and for other people for a little while, because we're all going through this together and we all get wounded together when these kinds of tragedies happen. And resist the impulse that you may have to judge yourself for not being okay or not being able to just soldier on despite, tragedies that are happening. I work a lot with really just amazing, like overachievers, like, kings and queens of the world. They have their own businesses. They're doing all kinds of stuff. And I tell you what, it can be very, very hard for them to not kind of go to this place of, well, I should just be able to, like shrug it off and keep going. I shouldn't be impacted the way that I am by some of these things. And it's that idea itself that will actually make all of this worse. If you start beating yourself up for feeling bad, then you don't feel your feelings that need to be felt, and they will persist. So it's much easier to just jump in the pool, have a good cry, give yourself a day or two to feel like crap, and you'll get through it more quickly. It's okay to grieve. And during this time of grieving and, feeling afraid and feeling horrified, practice nurturing yourself and nurturing others. And nurturing means different things to different people. But if you were sitting on my couch in my therapy office in front of me, I would start asking you, what feels good for you in these moments? Not, gleeful and jumping around good, but what feels satisfying, what feels nurturing, what makes you feel safer. And it could be, no high impact social situations for a little while and just lay low with your family, or taking care of hearth and home, or, taking care of yourself, maybe intentionally seeking more nourishing foods, going to bed a little bit earlier, taking yourself for a walk instead of doing some big, super intense work thing that you need to do. Just really listening to yourself, listening to your body. And again, going back to this idea of what feels safe. And for a lot of people, that safe feeling, particularly in the wake of such mass tragedies, is really just being close to the people that we love the most. And so it's gathering your family around you, calling your family if you live at a distance, your closest friends, your support network. Even, for some people it feels hollow to do this online, but going even on social media and just really experiencing the support and kind of the collective comfort of having this experience with people that you know. I would also encourage you, after, the first couple of days of difficulty, to start searching around for empowerment. Because one of the things that makes people feel afraid and scared after stuff like this is the feelings of helplessness and just how out of control it feels. And for many people, they feel safer and they feel more empowered when they feel like they can do something, either helping people that have been directly affected. I think we all saw the pictures of the people, lined up around the block to go donate blood right in the aftermath of the Las Vegas shooting. Or for other people, being an active partner in getting together donations for people in Puerto Rico or Texas or Florida or other, parts of the country that have been affected, doing things, raising money, or, looking into activism. If it feels more, some people are, really find that point of empowerment through activity, like doing physical things, helping somebody clean up, getting involved in a blood drive, going and doing things. And some people, I think, find that feeling of empowerment when they feel like they are taking a stand towards a larger cause in the sense of activism and going into that idea of how do we keep stuff like this from happening again? How do we live in a safer society? And I know that there are many different opinions of what a safer society looks like and what would be involved, but joining, jumping in the fray and joining the debate and having your voice heard can be an incredibly powerful thing and can help you feel less afraid and less terrorized in the wake of this sort of thing. And then for many other people, and I think I fall in this category, is really more about supporting others and how do we help other people that are going through difficult things. And, I think that I personally find a lot of meaning in that. And that's a big part of what I'm doing here every other week on this podcast is helping you and supporting you in finding your way through it and being a comforting kind of supportive presence in the life of other people. That's very meaningful to me. And if you find meaning in that, I bet that there are ways that you can do that too in your own circle and in your own life and in the ways that you have available. You may have family or friends in those areas and even just calling and checking in. How are you doing? People that are more directly impacted by these things. Maybe they live in Houston. Maybe they are in Las Vegas. Maybe they were there. There were 20,000 people there. There's a good chance you're only 1 or 2 degrees of separation from somebody that was in Las Vegas last week. People who are going through the thick of it and have really just been like capital T traumatized or, God forbid, have lost somebody and are grieving, they may not be in a place where they can talk to you or anybody for that matter because it's too fresh. It's too much. They just need to kind of cocoon a little bit, and you're reaching out and checking in and sending a text or a call, letting people know that you're thinking of them, sending them a little care package, just letting them know that you know what they're going through and that they haven't been forgotten. Somebody might not be able to interact with you or acknowledge what you're doing for them in that moment, but a few months from now, they might reach back out and let you know that actually meant so much to them. So don't give up if you have people that that have been impacted. And even people that have been impacted by trauma a long time ago, still some acknowledgement. Those anniversaries are so important to people that have encountered a loss like that. So looking for ways to be empowered by getting involved. I will also tell you something that may or may not be, I find myself second guessing a little bit because I certainly do not ever want to be like, and the silver lining is, because there's no silver lining when it comes to some of the tragedies that we've weathered together in the last few years. And I will also say that in the times of devastation and like when death is unavoidable, it's all around us. These can be extremely powerful moments of reflection and like self-awareness. And this is not my idea. No less than Carlos Castaneda said in his book, Journey to Ixtlan. He was talking a lot about this idea that, I think the quote is, death is the only wise advisor we have. And he was using that idea in many different contexts in that book. But, I think the biggest was this idea that when we are aware of our own mortality or those of other people, it has a way of putting everything else in our lives in not just context, but also stark relief in terms of what is important to us and what is not important. And I know from my own life experience, I don't know if I can't remember if I've talked about this on the podcast or not, but 9/11 was a horrifying day for all of us. And in my own family, we lost my cousin that day. He worked at Cantor Fitzgerald, which was in the World Trade Center. And as far as we know, he was killed instantly in the terror attack. And, the few days right after that were just such a blur. I mean, there was just a numb feeling, the shock, the horror. But, as I was kind of starting to come out of all that, one of the things that stuck with me the most, and which I think can be a very common experience for people who have gone through this kind of thing, is this idea that, my life could be over any day. I could be minding my own business, drinking coffee at my desk at 9:00 in the morning, and a plane crashes through the window, and just that basic sense of safety in the world was no longer secure, right? And one of the things that came up for me around that was, okay, so if this is true, if I could literally die at any time, later today, minding my own business, how do I want to live? How do I want to live my life if it could be over at any moment? And for me, that was a hugely transformational period of my life, because until then, I just kind of been messing around. I wasn't that long out of college and doing different things, but not really feeling engaged in it. And it really led me to a time of reflection around what is most important to me. When I die, what do I want my life to have been about? What is the legacy that I want to leave? What are the not even so much things I want to accomplish, but what would I feel really good about for having done? And it was through that exploration that I really became more fully aware of the truth that what's very meaningful to me is doing exactly this, what I'm doing with you right now, which is trying to help you and trying to help other people. And it was because of that exploration that I wound up going to counseling school and just started this whole new chapter of my life. It was through that tragedy. And so I'm not telling you this to make it be about me. I'm offering this to you as an idea that in these moments of just awfulness and tragedy and in the reality that we live in such an unstable, unpredictable, and in many ways unsafe world that is many times outside of our control. If that is true, what are the choices that you want to make every day about the way that you live your life, the way you treat other people, the way that you interact in the world with your family, with your friends, and also the legacy that you want to leave behind when it is your turn to go? And, are you doing things in your life right now that you feel good about or that are meaningful to you? And it doesn't have to be your career. There are a lot of people that are, kind of meh about their career, and that career is a means to an end because their number one priority is being with their family or having a certain kind of lifestyle that career can allow them to have. And so, you don't have to have a perfect life that is saturated with meaning in every single one of your activities, but just, giving yourself the chance to kind of check in with yourself and back to this idea of, am I living a life that is congruent with my core values and the things that are most important to me as a person? I think it was even after the awful Sandy Hook thing, going back to that idea and just, the tragedy and the loss of so many of those families. I think my husband and I had been a little bit on the fence about, should we stick with one kid? Should we have two kids? What should we do? And after that, really, again, the same kind of pattern for me, just a couple days of just, but then kind of coming out of it, thinking again around what is really important. And for me, just like being here with you and helping you is family for me. And that's when we were sure that we wanted to have another child. Of course, fate did not. Now we're foster parents, but anyway, but again, just using these times as an opportunity, as a doorway to get in touch with what's really important, and maybe even making some changes in your life as a result. So now, before I leave you, I am also going to give you a few anxiety management tips because, it's one thing to deal with a direct aftermath and the kind of existential crisis that these moments can fling us all into. But there is also a reality and something that we've been seeing a lot in my practice over the last probably year or so is this idea of situational anxiety. And what I mean by that is it's not an anxiety disorder, doesn't mean that there's anything wrong with you, but really, generally high-functioning people who are killing it and doing a great job in their life and a lot of things going well for them also have, understandably, these really anxious thoughts about what could happen. They are afraid to ride on the subway or the light rail if you're in Denver, or they, start to feel uneasy out in crowds. And again, I don't think that we can live through these things and not have some sort of residual, I was at Comic-Con, was it last summer? I don't know. But there, thousands and thousands of people and, Smurfs and about 17 Darth Vaders, everybody jumping around having a good time. But I know my husband and I walked past this one kid who was super creepy. And I'm sure that was his creepy costume, but he was wearing a bandana like over his face, just to under his eyes, and holding a machine gun. And it might have been a Comic-Con, cardboard machine gun, but it looked real. And it was just in that moment of, ooh, like that was a really scary thing. And just thinking that, bad things can and do happen. And so how do we keep going when you have these scary thoughts coming into your head that are, to a degree based in reality, because these things are happening in our world? So here is some of what we teach our clients here at Growing Self, and I offer these to you in case that they help you with some of what might be happening for you lately too. And one of the biggest most foundational skills we teach are related to mindfulness and staying in the present moment, because our present moment is almost always completely safe. Terrible things do happen, and it's 99.9999999 infinity 9 practically % of the time that nothing is actually happening in that moment. And so to come back to your reality of, yes, something bad did happen, and it is not still happening right now. So what's happening in front of me, and using your physical senses to come back into the safety of the present moment can be very healing, in the sense that if you allow yourself to experience that felt safety, that mindfully, it's kind of a sanctuary, and you can calm back down and do some grounding. Also, I know we are all so connected, but it can also be helpful to limit your exposure to triggering information. We have constant news and alerts and feeds and stuff, and it is okay to turn off your alerts and to take a day or two where maybe you do almost a cleanse if you've been feeling really heightened. I know a couple of days right after the Las Vegas thing, I could not listen, part of me wanted to know, but I had to do like 2 days where I just did not even listen to any news at all because I just couldn't. And it's okay to do that. Sometimes anxiety can trick you into believing that hypervigilance is useful. That means always kind of looking around for the latest new danger. But when it comes to those kinds of updates, it's just sort of re-traumatizing and it's not helpful. So it's okay to take a break. And also, with anxiety, coming back to control and controlling what you can, and so that your anxiety, like that feeling of horror, can be very informative in, the sense of, do I have everything that I need? Do I have a safety plan? Have I talked to my kids about what to do if we're out somewhere and we hear gunfire? I mean, I know we all hate having to have those kinds of conversations, but anxiety is your friend. Anxiety is a motivating force that helps you think, am I safe? And there may be things that could help you be safer. So figure that out. Make a list. Do you have an action plan? Do you have safety procedures in place? Do you have everything that you need? And if not, fix that so that you can be more well equipped to handle a disaster or some unfortunate life event. Then, once anxiety has done its job and informed you, like, oh, hey, replace that deadbolt that doesn't work or whatever, then we need to, thank anxiety for helping us and informing us about what we need, and then ask it to leave us alone. So thank you. I heard you. I listened to what you say. I know what I need to do. And nothing bad is happening to me right now. Thank you. I'm okay. Also, remember that every moment is a choice, and while we can't control the things that happen to us, we can't control the things that happen in the world, we can all control how we respond to it, and we can all commit to ourselves being a force of good in the world. And while there are, terrible people doing terrible things, there are a lot more of us. Good people helping others. So many heroes in Las Vegas. So many acts of heroism and self-sacrifice and love that we all saw through all these natural disasters. And so many good people all around us fighting to make this world a better, safer, more compassionate place. And so when you start to feel down, think about what you can do to be more empowered and be a force of good in the world in whatever way feels most empowering and nourishing and good to you. Okay, that's it. I hope that these ideas help you cope with the most recent thing. And if you're listening to this at some point in the future, if there's been another terrible thing, I hope that you hear these words and that it helps you through that time. And I will be back in a couple of weeks with a really fun and exciting relationship podcast. So stay tuned.